Welcome back to Jacques in the garden. Besides petting Cosmo, we have a couple different things to get done today. One of them is actually Cosmo is right over there, which is my 4-in-1 plum tree. We're going to be doing some summer pruning on that. I'll explain exactly what that is and why it's a good idea to do. And then over on the other side, over there somewhere, we are going to be harvesting out some potatoes. Now these are potatoes that I grew in a raised bed, and I actually planted some at the same time in a grow bag. This is a video I posted a while back. If you want to check that out, I started them all at the exact same time from the exact same plants, and let's just say the raised bed potatoes are much more impressive. I already dug one out, but we have another 4 to go. So let's get started though with some of the pruning on this fruit tree, because I am really into this method. I think it makes a lot of sense. So let me explain what it is to you guys and show you the process. It's not as scary as you think. Here's the 4-in-1 plum tree in question that we are going to be pruning today. As you can see, it is quite large, and this is a tree that's only been in my garden for 1 year now. Now I want to mention what a 4-in-1 tree is, and what it is that you take one tree and then you attach 4 different varieties on there. So here's one of the varieties up here, and then if I come down here, I've got another variety there, another variety right here, and on the back side, I even have a yellow plum. So the cool thing is that from this one single tree, I'll have 4 different varieties of plums, and I'll get to taste all of those different flavors while only taking up the space of a single tree. You could even end up with plums that have dramatically different colors. It doesn't matter. They're all plums, and they're all being supported by the main rootstock. Now what happens with these kinds of trees is usually one of them will be much more vigorous than the rest of them. In this case, it is the beauty plum here. Just take a look at the thickness of that branch compared to the other 3. It is absolutely dominating. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this pruning in the summertime, because it's very easy for me to be able to look at this and see where all that bushiness is, where all the growth is, where all the leaves are, where the branches are crossing. So summer pruning gives you a clear visual of how the tree is actually going to grow, because you could see it. Now the other reason summer pruning is really great is because a lot of diseases are actually fungal in nature, and they happen in the winter time when it's cold and wet. So by cutting this tree now, you give it plenty of time to heal before that cold weather comes, and that is why we do it. The first thing you want to look for is the 3 Ds, which is dead, diseased, or dying. And right here I have a broken branch, so that is well on its way to dying. In terms of disease, there are a lot of different spotted leaf diseases that can affect these types of trees, so I'm not going to focus on that too much, and I will just instead try to treat that. Now the thing that I will be focusing on mostly here is this other half of the tree where that more vigorous rootstock, or not rootstock, grafted variety is growing. So let's go ahead and start there. The goal here is you can actually over prune. First of all, I should say that. So you don't want to go too heavy, but we will be dropping about 1/3 to 2/3 of the length of these branches to try to balance this out. Once I work on this bigger half, where it's much more vigorous anyway, I'll come back around and try to balance out the other sides. So first I'm going to start on this side here and look for where I have branches that are growing into the space of the other tree. So right here, this branch, for example, is starting to interfere with the other one, and there's so much growth on this side that why would I want to actually just stress out that other tree any more than I have to? So what I'm going to do here is actually take a deep cut. I think this is called a heading cut, where you cut it close to the base, just like this. And now that branch is entirely gone, and it won't be crowding out this half of the tree as much. So likewise, I have another one over here. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this one so it doesn't interfere with that tree. Now over here is an interesting branch because it is starting to grow in towards the other branches, but I don't want to remove it entirely. So instead what I could do is look right here where the actual leaf meets the main branch, and you'll see these little buds. If you prune it, let's say I prune it right here, see that bud that's facing off to the left? Well, that is now going to be the primary bud, and that is where a new branch is going to form. So instead I want to pull it towards me. So this bud right here is facing me. So what I'm going to do is cut right above it. And now from this little junction is where the new main branch is going to emerge and grow out this way where it won't interfere with anything. So let's go ahead and do a lot more cuts here and get this thing going. So the next thing I'm going to do here is really start cutting back these branches 1/3 to 2/3 in length to reduce the vigor of this much more vigorous grafted variety. So I'm gonna start by also removing some of these double branches because there's just too much energy in the system. I want the other half of the tree to really start taking over. But what I'm going to do again is look for a site where I could get a bud facing the direction I want and force the primary growth to go that way. So in this case, I'm gonna come in pretty deep here. I'm gonna cut right there. And now this is going to send off a new branch in that same direction, but now it has to catch up to this. So we're gonna continue working our way down. And remember that if you cut too much, you can actually hamper your fruit production. So don't go too crazy. This is more to just control the height, slow it down a little bit, tell the tree to chill, because I don't wanna be picking plums up here. I wanna be picking plums right here at my maximum reach. So that is the goal of this, and that is why we're doing it. As you can see, I've already dropped quite a lot from this half of the tree. And now that I've done that, I feel pretty good about it. Like I said, I don't want to go too intense because I don't want to hamper the tree. So now let's take a look at the other side and how we want to balance it. So already I could see that this is the next primary branch, or the next strongest. It's got a long, tall branch up there. And I don't think I want to mess with this one too much. The main thing I'm looking at is the one that's shooting out towards the other variety. So what I'm going to do here is look for a bud that's facing more towards your guys' perspective and see if I could force it to grow that way instead. So now I'll try to force it out that direction. Over here, I don't really want to remove any more because I had a lot of caterpillars on this lower half of the tree. They stripped down a lot of the older leaves. And if I remove too much, it won't be able to photosynthesize. So this one for now, I'm going to leave it as is. Let's take a look at these other varieties. This one, oh, it has a crossing branch on this side. So what I'll do is I will remove this from the variety that I was just showing you guys. And I'll go ahead and maybe I'll do a full removal there, just like that. We ended up removing quite a lot of material from the plum tree. Now, let me explain a couple more things first, and a little bit of a caveat here. Before you go ahead and prune your fruit trees in the summer, you want to check a couple things. First of all, that there's no new growth on it. You don't want to cut it when it's actively growing, putting out new leaves. In this case, I could see that all the leaves are fully mature, and that's not so much of an issue. The other thing you want to look for is at the very tip of each branch, there should be a little bit of a bud forming that's bigger than the rest. I can't really show it to you that easily, but that is called the terminal bud, and it's a sign that your tree really has truly stopped growing in terms of length and more leaf. That is the optimal time to do the summer pruning. Now, a couple other things that I'll mention. Summer pruning is fantastic for reducing the tree's height because now all of its energy that's remaining from all these leaves is going to focus on producing fruit buds and flowers for next year instead of keeping all that energy for producing the fruit and flowers up high. And we've also reduced a lot of the energy that this tree can now get by removing that. So this should keep the tree height a little bit shorter next year, and also will encourage a lot more of the fruit to settle at the height that we pruned it. So a lot of advantages here. The last one being that if you live in an area that gets something called silver leaf disease, that is really going to affect your plum tree substantially if you wait till September, fall, winter to prune it. So that is the summer pruning on the plum tree. I'm pretty happy with it. We'll see how it does next year, but I actually see one of my least favorite pests in the garden on it right now. So let me show you that before it flies away. So right over here is the leaf-footed bug. I'm gonna grab it before it flies away. The reason why I hate it so much is because it walks around, it stabs your tomatoes, it leaves all these yellow dots that then get bigger, and all they're really doing is stabbing all your tomatoes, making them look weird, grow weird, and also affecting the flavor. So for me, leaf-footed bugs, I have no mercy. I will kill them on site. In that case, I missed it, but it flew into my chicken coop, so maybe my chickens will get it for me. Now, we did the summer pruning on this. I want to show you one more example of a fruit tree that I summer pruned and some training that I done on it. I could even show you some training on this one here to make the tree even better after the pruning. This right here is a nectarine that I also summer pruned, and what you'll be seeing is all of this crazy looking string coming off of the branches. What I did is I drilled a bunch of holes along the outer rim of the pot so that I could attach the string to it. What this is doing is it's forcing my tree branches to grow exactly where I want them. So I'm able to pull them a little bit to the side, flatten them out, and create this more flat structure, which is easier for the whole tree to fill out, still get airflow, and set lots of fruit. So the goal here is to spread apart the branches as much as I can, keep them away from each other, and also try to make them as horizontal as possible so that I could get as much fruit and airflow as I possibly can get. So this is one way of doing it using string. I think it looks a little bit crazy, but it was fun to string up and do. I also have this post back here to try to right this tree because it was leaning a little bit. So that will all work really well, but it usually takes about a year for the wood to harden in the branches and permanently keep that shape. So let me show you another technique using a purchased product instead of something like string. So here is the other thing that we are talking about. This is, I don't even know what they're called, plant stem trainer. So this is what it looks like. It looks really weird, doesn't make much sense. I ordered 2 different sizes. I just got these on Amazon. I could add a link to them, but let me show you how they work, how to install them. They're a little bit annoying. I much prefer the string. I would recommend that first. But if you don't have anywhere to tie your string to, something like this will be quite handy. So here's actually a really good use case for this. I have these 2 branches, which are actually 2 of the different grafted varieties that are very close to each other. What I want to do is I have this empty space over here. I'd rather have this branch growing that way towards this direction. So how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to use something like this, or like I showed you with string. You could also cut pieces of wood to whatever size you want and do it that way. I've done that in the past as well. So let me remember how this works. I think like that, no, the other way around. So you wrap it around, you put this part through one side of the branch, and what that does is it forces it to stay in this position. So now what I could do is bend this branch and then just fit it right inside that little groove thing and let go. Now what's happening is this branch is definitely being forced much more in that direction. There's nothing growing there, so now it's able to fill in that space. That is the advantage of this, is it trains your plant to grow in a certain direction, to fit whatever your needs are, your space, the way that your other branches are working. For example, I might even want to push this whole system a little bit further away, but it could be a little bit tricky with these because you're limited to wherever you could fit them. So that's the basic idea here. That's all I wanted to share. It's a great idea if you have a tree that's growing and it has like a bare side, you could start pushing more branches towards that direction. But now let's go harvest some potatoes because I've been very excited and I want to see how many potatoes we could get. So first I wanted to talk about this bed here. This is where I had some garlic and it turned into a melon patch. This is a 3x6 foot medium birdies bed and I planted it with melons. There's a sweet potato hiding in there as well and a Tithonia, aka Mexican sunflower. Now, first of all, I'll say the melons, the watermelons in particular, I'm very pleased with because I have 2 formed fruits that are already sizing up quite nicely. Still a ways to go before they're ready, but I'm just happy to see them. Over here on this side, it looks like just a ridiculous pile of leaves. And that's because a lot of these vines started growing behind the bed where there isn't really any sun. So what I did is I literally just took this vine, picked it up, threw it on top. You don't even have to right side it because as soon as the sun hits this plant, those leaves will just naturally turn and face the sun like a solar panel. Now down here, you'll see that I do have a melon formed, so I'm very pleased about that. But I also see a lot of flowers on the plant, so I think I have a couple more on the way. Now working our way down, this is the bed that we recently just flipped, where I changed my mind midway on how I wanted to plant it, and this is where we're at right now. What you'll see is I have the basil that I left in there. It looks stunning, it looks incredible. Very nice dark green growth, tons of new leaves. Very happy to see that. This one was covered in flowers, and I said that if I chop them all off, it should regrow and it would probably still have some amount of flowers, which is definitely true. There's one right there. There's another one right there. You could still remove these if you want, but honestly, like I said in the last video, this basil is still going to be much tastier than anything at the grocery store, even though it has some flowers. So this is on its way out, trending out, but still has plenty of delicious growth on there. Now, one thing that's very impressive is take a look at this squash here. This is one of the kabocha squashes. This thing is maybe 4 times in size and volume as it was from when I planted it not that long ago. I believe it was 2 weeks max from today. So very happy with this bed overall. The okra has started to form flowers. There's even a little baby okra there. So I'm very happy about that. The melons have also doubled or tripled in size. The peppers are putting on a lot of new growth. You can see all these new darker leaves. Poblanos are even setting fruit. Again, more dark leaves here on these new plants. The only thing that is a little bit sad is the lettuce, which is not too surprising. But basically what happened was that these ones were planted directly from the plug itself straight into the ground. I didn't mess with the roots. These ones I tried to split apart a bit, and that was a bad idea. What I ended up with was damaged roots, and they just don't have enough water to thrive. So these probably won't taste the best. They'll probably recover, and I'll leave them, but those ones should be totally fine. And once these peppers bush out even just a little bit, you could see it's grown quite a bit. This one was cut down to the base here. So in 2 weeks or so, they'll probably be about this tall and provide much more shade, and it should be totally fine. Now, in terms of the main or original pepper bed, it is looking really wonderful. absolutely loaded up with peppers, like more peppers than I even know what to do with, especially on my hot peppers. Here's a cholano pepper, just prolific. The serrano pepper that was overwintered. So this is an overwintered plant. Take a look at how much fruit is on there. I can't even capture it all, it's insane. So these I'm planning on drying and saving as dried serrano peppers. The aji mojo peppers are really cool. They've been really delicious and fun to grow. Again, sugar rush peach, too prolific for me. Next year I'm only growing one plant. But we also planted some stuff over here, and that's all doing extremely well as well. Look at how big these leaves are. They've put on tons of growth. I did leave these 2 broccolis. I lied to you guys. I said I would remove them. And the birds that were pecking them seem to have migrated on. So now I actually have a little broccoli treat that I can enjoy for lunch. Very happy about that. And then over here, these guys have also started to grow and they're doing just fine. So everything is looking quite good. I have the tomatoes over here. This is my 3rd round of tomatoes that I planted. As you can see, there's definitely some disease, but nothing too unmanageable. I have some nice fruit on the way, really nice sized tomato there. A lot of cherry tomatoes, lots of other indeterminate slicers over here. Really nice cluster. I've got some Cherokee purples. And on this side, I also have tons of tomatoes on the way. This was planted a little bit ahead of this row here, but both of these rows are meant to take place of the original plants that I put all the way back in March. So these are the tomatoes that I first planted. They're still doing great, especially all the new growth is very much disease-free. There's a lot of new flowers on the way. The only real problem when plants get this old is that they're hard to train. This is an 8-foot T-post. You can see it's clearly overgrown that. I can't even, like right now, this is like 3 feet dangling below the max height of the trellis. So I'm a little bit maxed on height, but I will still allow them to produce until it gets a little bit too cold. There's one of those leaf-footed bugs. There it is right there. This is what you like to do. You just grab them, throw them on the ground, and stomp them. That is the best way to deal with them in my experience. It does feel a little bit gross to have to grab them, but it's gonna fly away and it's going to make more babies and they're all gonna stab your tomatoes. So anyway, I do wanna show you guys right here. This is that fruit tree that I grew in that video titled How to Grow a Fruit Tree Faster, the multi-year hole method. And honestly, I've gotta say it's working. I cannot believe this tree's only been in the ground for 6 months, guys. And look how big it is. I even ate 3 peaches off of it. They were absolutely stunning and delicious. So that method, I'm going to consider it approved and real. I could see the evidence with my own eyes. I've tasted it with my own eyes. So now let's go take a look over here through the tomato jungle. And this is, oh, also I replanted this bed, a lot of eggplant. This has been here for a while now, but it is now starting to produce really well. Added more peppers and more watermelons that will trail out. But this is the bed in question that we are going to be working on today. Like I said earlier, I already harvested some of the potatoes, which I'll show you in a moment here, but we have to harvest the rest, and I know it's going to be a good harvest based on what I already found here. Here is the initial harvest that I had mentioned earlier. Just take a look at how many potatoes I got from a single plant. I am so excited. I will mention that, let me actually split these off. All of this right here on this side is what I got from one plant in the raised bed. All of these potatoes over here are the ones that I got from that single grow bag. Now, if you remember a while back, I did that video where I planted all these at the same time, some in the grow bag, some in the raised bed. This is the result of that. This is one plant. I got maybe 3 or 4x the amount of potatoes from the one in a 10-gallon grow bag. So for me, I'm going to be just recommending from here on out that you grow them in raised beds, or if you do have to grow them in containers, get a bigger container than you might expect that you need. So for example, this was 10-gallon. 15-gallon would be what I would recommend in the future to try to get that big harvest of potatoes that really feels like it's worth the effort. Not that it takes that much effort, but it feels bad to put 1 potato in and get like 4 potatoes back. Now over here, I don't have the comparison, but this was all from a single potato as well. So now let's go back to that raised bed and see how many more potatoes we could get. I have a feeling I'm going to be eating good. I'm going to be eating potatoes for breakfast for the next coming weeks. Over there is the Shosugiban cedar bed that I burned in a previous video. It looks really good. I wish it wasn't so hidden in my garden, but that ended up being the back corner space that I had for it. Now I do already see a potato poking out right here, so that'll be the first potato. I'm gonna just go in with hands here because I have turned off the irrigation just a bit ago, I think about 2 weeks now. So the soil isn't too wet. It should be pretty easy for me to move through it with my hands. I just wanna see how many potatoes I could pull out of here. So one thing I will mention though, is that for me personally, I like to wait for my potatoes to be mostly dead. So here you can see it's all brown and dying. but some green is still okay for me. The reason why I wait for this period and not for them to go fully 100% dead brown is that what I found is that if you wait a little bit too long, sometimes pests like roly-polies or earwigs might burrow themselves into your potatoes and make themselves a meal. So instead, I found that picking them a little bit earlier when there's still a little bit of green is more ideal for me. Now the downside is that they won't last as long in storage, but let's be real here. These potatoes are not going to be lasting long no matter what, because they're going to be working their way into every single meal for me moving forward until they're entirely gone and nobody else can steal my precious potatoes from me. So that is the goal here. What I'm going to be doing is trying to look for where these plants were and then just digging underneath that spot. So I will be moving this irrigation out of the way, try to get some of these staples out of here so I don't stab myself. But let's go ahead and get harvesting. I am so hyped on this harvest, guys. Look at this. Let me just show you guys. I'm just casually reaching in here, pulling up fistfuls of potatoes. Looks like this one got nibbled on by a rat. So another good reason for me to come out here and harvest before this rat finds the rest of them. But let's just keep going. This is going to be a great harvest. I'm gonna go ahead and start throwing them in this bucket here, this bin, so that I don't accidentally rebury them. I mean, come on guys. Like, how are you gonna beat potatoes like this? They're just so much bigger than the ones that were in the grow bag. Not only am I getting more, but they're physically larger. They look better. They just don't have as rough of a skin as the ones that I grew in the grow bag had. And I've gotta say, I am so on board for potatoes again. I was starting to feel like it wasn't actually worth the effort to grow them because of all my experiences with harvesting them from grow bags. But this is changing the game here. This is making me think that they are 100% worth it. And next year, I'll probably end up planting a bigger raised bed with more potatoes. So there is the potato harvest in question. And like I said, I am now convinced it is worth growing potatoes if you grow them in raised beds. One thing I'll also mention is that now that I've grown potatoes in this raised bed before, there will always be potatoes in this raised bed. There's no way I got every single little potato like this size. I left a couple behind. Those will regrow on their own naturally and reseed this bed. But as I mentioned while I was harvesting, I found a few that had already resprouted. So this is fully chitted up, even sending out roots and has some top growth here. And I've got 3 of them that are actually growing that intensely. In terms of these Yukon style potatoes, I have a few that have begun to chit. There's like a little bulbous mass there where the chit has formed. But honestly, I'm gonna just rub them off and eat it because I want these potatoes to enjoy. So not bad harvest. Nice way to start the day with a summer prune on the fruit trees. And I gotta say guys, get out there, plant some potatoes in raised beds because it is definitely worth it. I will be eating these. As soon as I finish talking here, I'm gonna go cook some up and just toss them in a simple butter, garlic, and herb. And that's it. And enjoy the sweet, delicious potato flavor from homegrown potatoes. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.